Hello and welcome to another anime lore and theory video. I'm Shergog, your host, and today we are going to take a closer look at why the NPCs of the Great Tomb of Nazarick are disliking outsiders to such an extreme degree as they actually do. But before we're going to take a closer look at any of this, let me quickly thank my patrons for supporting this channel, as well as say thanks to all users of the YouTube thanks function for making one-time donations. And with that said, let's get to the topic at hand. If we ignore the existence of the penguin butler Eclair for just a moment, Ainz is indeed the undisputed ruler of Nazarick. And Ainz is not merely a typical tyrant or an absolute ruler. He is so much more. First of all, no ruler governs truly alone. Even kings in absolute monarchies depend on binding their servants and subjects to themselves and to align their interest with one's own. Through an opulent court life and close proximity to himself, Louis XIV, the legendary Sun King, managed to rule with an iron fist, managed to obscure information by not telling their subjects what he is actually about to do. And he always just said, "I shall see to it," whether it has been a problem or an opportunity. So he also managed the information very well. And in the beginning it was also possible to keep the common people content, or at least under control. But when Louis XVI was overthrown during economic hardships, it became clear how fragile even the rule of an absolute monarchy could actually be. It showed that enough dissatisfaction at the lowest levels alone could topple a dynasty that had ruled France for centuries, setting new state forms into motions, alongside guillotines. In other words, only for as long as the military, one's own doctors, the high-ranking officials, the media, the public figures, and at least part of the population tolerates, not necessarily accepts but tolerates, their own rule, or of course ideally actively supports the rule because they benefit directly from it. And as long as the ordinary people have either come to terms with their lives under your own rulership or see gradual improvement, one remains an autocrat, and for only so long. Because every ruler, every master of life and death is only in power as long as their own subjects and allies allow it. But with Ainz it's different, because since volume 14 he is absolutely certain that his subordinates, the beloved creations of his friends, the NPCs, will never ever betray him, and that he can therefore always rely on their loyalty. Since the beings of Nazarick, now brought to life, began their existence as NPCs in a dive MMORPG called Yggdrasil Online, and because the game lacked a mechanic for NPCs to betray their creators, the NPCs of the Great Tomb of Nazarick are literally incapable of betraying Ainz. And even Eclair is programmed for loyalty. And this loyalty is in general absolute. So absolute in fact that Nazarick, after accidentally revealing Albedo's name while defending Momon's honor, so Ainz's honor essentially, begged Ainz to let her pay for this mistake with her own life. And we are truly talking about absolute, unwavering loyalty here that can only be questioned in the rarest of cases, such as through true love or the will of the original creator. However, even this loyalty, which is fundamentally ingrained into Ainz NPCs, has its limits, specifically in the realm of empathy, compassion, and tolerance towards any beings not from Nazarick. For example, Ainz has always sensed how much Albedo despised humans, even though she can usually hide this disgust and revulsion quite well. But occasionally it surfaced, such as in volume 11, when Philip placed his arm around her. And while Philip deserved his fate, Albedo generally holds an extreme disdain for humans and other beings not from the Great Tomb. And while Albedo sees outsiders as mere pests that she wants to eliminate as quickly as possible, Demiurge sees them as a plaything. And just like a little boy would play with a puppy, Demiurge plays with his two-legged sheep on the so-called happy farm. And even battlemates like Nazarick despise humans, and she was neither willing nor able, not even under Ainz own direct order, to hide her contempt for these vermin and maggots, as she called humans, to their face. In other words, the Great Tomb of Nazarick despised outsiders, and not even the explicit order from Ainz such as the command to behave at least somewhat civilized, while being disguised as Momon and Nabe to maintain their cover, could completely restrain this disdain. And Naberal, for instance, act openly hostile in the Adventurer Guild due to a total misjudgment of the situation, rooted in her contempt for humans and her assumptions of malice and ill intent on their part. So she was clearly projecting. And this raises the question, if even Ainz cannot always maintain absolute control, why are most of the NPCs in Nazarick like this? Why can't Ainz simply order them to appreciate humanity or at least view outsiders neutrally and without prejudice? And the reason why most NPCs of the Great Tomb of Nazarick despised outsiders is twofold. First, there was a massive conflict in Yggdrasil Online, where over 1,500 players, NPCs and summons stormed the Great Tomb of Nazarick, reaching as far as the 8th floor. And this event traumatized, for example, the Homunculi mates, as they could hear the sounds of epic battles raging on the 8th floor on their own 9th floor. And secondly, many of these NPCs have negative karma values, and in Yggdrasil Online, karma functions as an indicator of how good or how evil someone was. So being good generally involved a strong sense of altruism and compassion, putting others first, giving instead of taking, and having enough empathy to treat others as you would like to be treated, or as Touch Me put it, helping people in need. It's just common sense. And conversely, exploiting others, thinking only of oneself, seeing every unknown entity as a threat or a danger, and approaching them with extreme cruelty and disdain, treating them as inherently inferior, are traits widely considered evil. And since many NPCs have negative karma, they adopted this mindset towards outsiders. To them, outsiders are enemies, threats, and inherently less valuable than they themselves or their kin. It's also worth noting that this exclusion of outsiders fosters an internal unity. Whether it's a Claire or Sheltier, Albedo or Gargantua, individual differences become secondary, no matter who or what you are, and who you created, or who has created you. They are all still members of Nazarick, and within the guild, there's a fundamental respect among the NPCs for one another. And of course there are exceptions to this way of thinking as well, because not all of the NPCs of the Great Tomb of Nazarick have negative karma. For instance, Pestonia and Nigredo rescue children and babies from Nazarick's own forces, and Shizu and Neabaraya have formed a very close friendship. And Touch Me's son, Touch Me's creation, Touch Me's lookalike, Sebastian, the Butler of Steel, not only spared Tuara's life, but also continued to provide for her, even if it goes against the implicit wishes of the Great Tomb of Nazarick, and even individuals with evil karma values can have exceptions to their worldview. For example, Demiurge does not perceive Auriel Omega, the only human-like being in the Great Tomb of Nazarick, as a human, and this is because Auriel Omega is an immortal level 100 being, responsible for managing Nazarick's teleportation network, the spatial rifts, connecting its various floors. And from Demiurge's perspective, it's entirely reasonable not to classify her as a mere human. But you can also see here that Demiurge is somewhat reluctant to admit that humans exist in Nazarick on more than just a technical level. And this of course also has a subtext, as Ainz was once a human himself, making this perspective naturally very unsettling for him. And conversely, Demiurge and Albedo brought Renna, a human princess, or rather a former human princess, and therefore an ex-outsider, into the Great Tomb of Nazarick. But the reason why Renna was accepted while Inferior, who also sought admission into the guild in Volume 2, was rejected is because three conditions must be met, for an outsider to actually join the Grey Tomb. The first is, to enter Nazarick, you must be a heteromorph. Secondly, all available guild members must agree that you are now part of the group, that you are now a member of the Grey Tomb of Nazarick. And the third criteria that needs to be met is that you must have a job. And since Renna had become a heteromorph, she received Ainz approval to live in Nazarick, the only remaining supreme being, and by working for the greater good of Nazarick, while also adopting the mentality of serving the guild and not the other way around, she was accepted. And additionally, Demiurge and Albedo kinda stepped in to evaluate her on behalf of the absent guild members, because both recognized Renna's calculating, pragmatic and logical mindset, which already resembled that of a heteromorph, even during her own human life. And furthermore, Renna is a literal genius, as one of her character classes is literally the character class genius. And since Demiurge and Albedo were confident that Renna, now that she had climb, would dedicate herself to giving her best for the guild, Demiurge and Albedo approved of Renna actually entering the Grey Tomb of Nazarick. And this ties into something Ainz and the rest of his friends frequently lamented in Yggdrasil Online. Specifically Ainz Ulgon, the guild only had 41 players, far fewer than the maximum of 100 members that the game allowed per guild. And this was because as Nazarick became more well known and feared, and word spread that a world champion, aka Touch Me, was among its members, more and more players sought to join the guild. However, many of these players were only interested in using the guild for their own purposes and had no desire to contribute to its prestige, power, and reputation, or its overall well-being, and this led to the guild eventually imposing a complete recruitment freeze. Additionally, a world item had previously been stolen, giving the guild members further reason to be wary of any potential recruits. And what I'm getting at is that even the guild's players, the ones who created the NPCs, had bad experiences with outsiders. And since part of the creators' personalities, perspectives, thoughts, behaviors, and even some of their knowledge were imprinted onto each of the NPCs that they have designed, these negative experiences undoubtedly played a subconscious role in the NPCs' disdain and fear of the outsiders. And with that said, now it's your turn. What do you think about this video and about the very, very bad reputation that outsiders have in the Grey Tomb of Nazarick, and about a few exceptions? Let me know it down in the comment section. And while you type, I say thank you very much for watching, thanks to all of my Patreons for supporting this channel, and as usual, I say my special thanks to Ada Daddy Ada, ASK, Bad Guy Ye, Bad Burrito 316, Beezer, Ben C, Brandon S, Brandon D, Chrissy, Crowley0221, Sia, Crystal Prime, Dead Slime, Death is Mercy, Deathless Dragonlord, Demon Xenomorph 1987, Devin Downen, Ding Dong, Din Pep, Dragonlord Placidus Saxophone, Duckwagon, Dunkler Krieger, Dystopia, Dystopia II, Enigmatic Unicorn, Feralchivan, Guy with That Head, Hector Marino, Hoss, Haster, Jacob G, Jana B, Jason, J. Morris, Chromius, Kyle R, Lee K. Long, Legendarius, Le Louche Britannia with a Mustache, Lexus Fox, Lord Nishikian Rai, Lord Touch Me, Lofthraiser, Merowek, Mr. Shoes, Mr. Tweaker, Michael R, Michael Y, Nope, Oh Hell No, Normal Toad, O'Kill, Overlord General Gasper, Paddy Pentum, Personage, Ruru, Primus 11, Rhinomere, Q&A Caracos P, Shergox's Daddy, Shadow Lightning Wolf, Shrine Keeper, Sir Axolotl, Super Tier Magic Batista Bomb, Supreme Cheese, Staris, Ted, Texas Deer, the Orc Warboss, Rocket Smasher, T.E. Wang, Vash Hawkeye, Vegito27, Venture Fanatic, Wilhelm, Xenokai, and Sonagon. Thanks guys. Anyway, have a nice day, and I hope to see you all again soon on my next video.